The chess world was stunned when Magnus Carlsen suddenly resigned as world champion. But what they didn't know was the real reason behind his decision. You see, 3 days before his resignation, Magnus received a manila envelope containing photographs, bank statements, and audio recordings that proved FIDE President Arkady Dvorkovich had been fixing tournament results for over 5 years. The evidence was so damning that it could destroy professional chess forever. So Magnus did what Magnus does best. He declared war. And today, you'll witness the moment he walked into Dvorkovich's office and delivered the most brutal takedown in chess history. The elevator to the 14th floor of FIDE headquarters in Zurich hummed quietly as Magnus Carlsen stood alone, his reflection staring back from the polished steel doors. In his hands, a leather briefcase containing documents that would either save professional chess or destroy it entirely. The manila envelope that had arrived at his Oslo apartment 3 nights ago had changed everything. Inside were bank statements showing millions of dollars in suspicious transfers, photographs of secret meetings, and most damning of all, audio recordings of Arkady Dvorkovich himself orchestrating tournament fixes with criminal precision. Magnus had spent years watching the sport he loved deteriorate under Dvorkovich's leadership. Young players were being crushed not by superior opponents, but by a system designed to benefit those willing to pay the right price. Prize money disappeared, tournament conditions became increasingly suspicious, and any player who dared question the system found themselves mysteriously excluded from future events. But Magnus never had proof. Until now. The story began 6 months earlier when Magnus was approached by a young Indian Grandmaster named Arjun Erigaisi after a tournament in Mumbai. Arjun was visibly shaken, his hands trembling as he pulled Magnus aside in the hotel lobby. "Magnus," Arjun whispered, looking around nervously, "I need to tell you something. But if anyone finds out I spoke to you, my career's finished." Magnus had seen that look before. The hollow expression of a player whose dreams had been shattered by forces beyond their control. "What happened, Arjun?" "The tournament organizer approached me before my semi-final match," Arjun continued, his voice barely audible. "He offered me $50,000 to lose in a specific way, to play the Sicilian Dragon and resign after exactly 37 moves. When I refused, he showed me photographs of my family, my little sister walking to school, my mother at the market. He said accidents happen to people who don't cooperate." Magnus felt his blood run cold. "Did you report this to FIDE?" Arjun laughed bitterly. "FIDE? Magnus. The tournament organizer works directly for Chen Wei, and Chen Wei has dinner with Dvorkovich every month. This corruption goes all the way to the top. I played the moves they wanted. Magnus, I took the money, and I lost that match because I was terrified of what they might do to my family." That conversation had haunted Magnus for months. He began investigating quietly, reaching out to other players, former FIDE officials, tournament organizers who had grown disgusted with the system. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Dvorkovich wasn't just the president of FIDE, he was the head of an international criminal organization that had systematically corrupted professional chess for nearly a decade. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. FIDE's marble-floored reception area stretched before him, adorned with photographs of chess legends who had built the sport's reputation through decades of honest competition. Soon, Magnus thought grimly, those photographs might be all that remained of chess's integrity. "Mr. Carlsen?" The receptionist smiled nervously. "President Dvorkovich is waiting for you in the executive conference room." Her voice carried an unusual tension, as if she sensed that today's meeting would be different from all the others. Magnus had learned 3 days ago that this receptionist, Maria Santos, was one of several FIDE employees who had been secretly documenting Dvorkovich's criminal activities. The manila envelope that started this entire confrontation had come from her, along with 2 other whistleblowers who had risked everything to expose the truth. Magnus nodded silently and walked down the corridor lined with championship trophies and plaques commemorating FIDE's greatest achievements. Each step echoed off the walls like a countdown to Judgment Day. As he passed the trophy case, Magnus paused for a moment at the 2013 World Championship trophy, his first title, one in what he now realized might have been the last truly clean World Championship match in chess history. At the end of the hall, double oak doors bore a brass nameplate, Executive Conference Room A, Dvorkovich, President. Magnus took a deep breath and pushed open the doors. Inside, Arkady Dvorkovich sat behind an imposing mahogany table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expensive suit immaculate. At 58, He projected the image of a successful chess administrator who had dedicated his life to the sport. The reality, Magnus now knew, was far more sinister. Flanking Dvorkovich were two men Magnus didn't recognize, one Asian, one European, both wearing the kind of expensive suits that suggested significant financial backing. Magnus, my friend, Dvorkovich stood with arms outstretched, his smile wide but his eyes calculating. Please, sit. We have much to discuss about your future with FIDE. Allow me to introduce my colleagues, Mr. Chen Wei, one of chess's most generous patrons, and Mr. Volkov, who handles our Eastern European tournament operations. Magnus remained standing, studying the three men carefully. Chen Wei was approximately 45 years old, with the bearing of someone accustomed to power and the subtle nervousness of someone who preferred operating from the shadows. Volkov appeared to be ex-military, his posture rigid and his eyes constantly scanning the room for potential threats. Do we, Arkady? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like FIDE doesn't have much of a future at all. The smile faltered slightly. Dvorkovich gestured to the chair across from him. Come now, Magnus. You're upset about the World Championship format changes. I understand. But these decisions are made for the good of chess. To attract new audiences, new sponsors like Mr. Chen here. New sponsors, Magnus repeated, setting his briefcase on the table with deliberate care. Interesting choice of words. He opened the case and withdrew a thick manila folder. Tell me, Arkady, what do you know about Ding Liren's preparation for the World Championship? Chen Wei shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Dvorkovich maintained his composure. Ding is a formidable player. His preparation is his own business. His preparation, Magnus said, pulling out a photograph and sliding it across the table. Or yours? The photograph showed Dvorkovich in a private restaurant booth, shaking hands with Chen Wei. Between them on the table lay an open briefcase filled with cash. But more importantly, visible in the background was a laptop computer displaying what appeared to be advanced chess analysis software, the kind used by the world's strongest chess engines. Dvorkovich glanced at the photo, his face remaining impassive. This proves nothing. I meet with many chess sponsors. It's part of my job. Perhaps, Magnus agreed, pulling out another document. But this bank statement from your personal account shows a deposit of 2 million euros, made exactly 24 hours after this photograph was taken. The same amount that mysteriously disappeared from the World Championship prize fund. Chen Wei whispered something in Dvorkovich's ear, but Magnus caught fragments of it. Computer analysis, Ding's games, impossible accuracy rates, Magnus continued. But what's really interesting is this technical analysis of Ding's recent tournament games. Advanced computer forensics show correlation patterns between his moves and specific chess engines that exceed statistical probability by factors of thousands to 1. In simple terms, Ding Liren has been receiving computer assistance during his games. The color began to drain from Dvorkovich's face. You have no right to investigate my personal finances or make baseless accusations about our players. You're right about the finances, Magnus said calmly. But the Swiss Financial Authority does have that right. And they've been very interested in these transactions ever since an anonymous tip led them to discover your hidden accounts in 3 different banks. As for the accusations about Ding, well, that's where this gets really interesting. Magnus pulled out a small device no larger than a smartphone. This is a signal detector, specifically designed to identify electronic communication devices. During Ding's last 5 tournament games, this device registered consistent radio frequency transmissions originating from his direction every time he faced a critical position. The signals matched the timing of his most brilliant moves that just happened to correspond perfectly with recommendations from the world's strongest chess computers. Volkov stood abruptly, his hand moving toward his jacket, but Magnus raised his hand calmly. I wouldn't do that. Mr. Volkov, you see, this meeting is being broadcast live to a secured server monitored by chess journalists from 12 different countries. Any violence committed in this room will be witnessed by thousands of people. What do you want? Magnus, Dvorkovich demanded, his composure finally cracking. Money? A guaranteed spot in future tournaments? Control over tournament regulations? Name your price. Magnus leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. I want you to understand something. Arkady, you've been treating chess like your personal criminal enterprise for years. Fixing tournaments, stealing prize money, destroying careers of players who wouldn't cooperate with your schemes. You've turned the sport I love into a sophisticated gambling operation, where results are predetermined by whoever pays the highest bribes. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Chen Wei interjected, his English heavily accented but his meaning clear. This network extends far beyond chess. We have partnerships with sports betting organizations across Asia, Europe, and North America. The money involved reaches into the hundreds of millions of dollars annually. If you think you can simply walk in here and destroy what we've built, you're more naive than I thought. Perhaps, Magnus replied, but you made one crucial mistake. And what's that? Dvorkovich asked. You assumed I was just another chess player you could manipulate or intimidate. Magnus pulled out a small digital recorder and placed it on the table. This device has been recording our entire conversation. But more importantly, it's broadcasting live to a secured server that's being monitored by law enforcement agencies in 6 different countries. Dvorkovich's eyes widened in horror. You can't do this. I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never play competitive chess again. With what authority? Magnus asked, pulling out another document. According to this legal injunction filed this morning in Swiss federal court, you've been temporarily suspended from all FIDE duties pending a full investigation into corruption charges. The evidence I've provided to authorities includes not just financial records, but testimony from 17 different chess players who were approached by your associates with offers to fix tournament results. Magnus continued, his voice gaining strength. Arjun Erigaisi wasn't the only player you people threatened. Maria Muzichuk was told her rating would be manipulated if she didn't cooperate with predetermined results. Anish Giri received death threats after he questioned suspicious circumstances at the candidates' tournament. Hao Yifan was forced into retirement because she refused to participate in your rigged women's tournaments. The door to the conference room suddenly opened. 2 men in dark suits entered, followed by a woman carrying a briefcase marked with the Swiss Federal Police emblem. Mr. Dvorkovich, the woman announced. I'm Inspector Muller with the Swiss Financial Crimes Unit. You're under arrest for money laundering, fraud, conspiracy to corrupt international sporting events, and racketeering. Dvorkovich stood shakily, his face now completely pale. This is a setup. Magnus, you don't understand the forces you're dealing with. There are people involved in this who make my problems look insignificant. Such as? Magnus asked, genuinely curious. Chen Wei isn't just a chess sponsor, Dvorkovich whispered as the officers approached. He's part of a transnational criminal network that's been manipulating sporting events across multiple disciplines for decades. Chess was just one piece of their operation. They have connections to organized crime families in Russia, China, and Eastern Europe. They control billions of dollars in illegal gambling revenues. Chen Wei tried to stand and leave, but 2 additional officers entered and blocked his path. Mr. Chen, Inspector Muller announced. You're also under arrest as part of this international conspiracy, Dvorkovich continued, his voice becoming increasingly desperate. And Ding Liren isn't just their asset for chess tournaments. He's been their primary testing ground for advanced cheating technology that they plan to deploy across multiple sports. The computer assistance methods they developed for him are being adapted for use in poker, esports, and even traditional sports where real-time data analysis can influence performance. Magnus felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of technology? Miniaturized receivers that can't be detected by current security measures, Chen Wei shouted before being handcuffed. Artificial intelligence systems that can calculate optimal strategies in real time and transmit them through seemingly random signals. We've invested tens of millions of dollars in research and development. But before either could elaborate further, Inspector Muller stepped forward. Gentlemen, you have the right to remain silent.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
As the officers prepared to lead the 3 men away in handcuffs, Dvorkovich turned back to Magnus one final time. Check Ding's games from the candidates' tournament, he called out. The computer analysis, the impossible accuracy rates, the suspicious moves that no human would consider. And Magnus, be very careful who you trust. Garry Kasparov has been asking too many questions about certain historical matches, particularly games from the 1980s and 1990s. Some very powerful people don't want those questions answered. Volkov, who had remained silent throughout most of the confrontation, suddenly spoke up as officers approached him. Magnus, you think this ends with us? This network has been operating for 30 years. We have files on every major chess player since 1990, every suspicious game, every questionable move, every player who might have received assistance. Kasparov's games from his matches against Karpov, his preparation methods, his connections to Soviet chess officials, there's more to those stories than the world knows. The door closed with a heavy thud, leaving Magnus alone in the conference room with Inspector Muller and 2 remaining officers. "Mr. Carlsen," Inspector Muller said, gathering the documents from the table, "we'll need your full cooperation in this investigation. The evidence you've provided is substantial, but based on what we just heard, we suspect this corruption network extends far beyond chess and far beyond these 3 individuals." Magnus nodded. But his mind was racing. The implications of what he'd just learned were staggering. If sophisticated cheating technology was being developed and tested through chess, it could potentially corrupt all competitive intellectual sports. Poker, esports, even academic competitions could be compromised. "Inspector Muller," Magnus said, "how quickly can you analyze the games and technology they mentioned? If this cheating network has been operating for decades, every major chess tournament for the past 30 years could potentially be compromised. We have forensic computer specialists and sports integrity experts who can begin analysis immediately," she replied. "But Mr. Carlsen, if what these men claimed is true, this investigation could expose systematic corruption in competitive chess dating back decades. We're talking about questioning the legitimacy of some of the most famous matches in chess history. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Magnus looked out the conference room window at the Swiss Alps in the distance, their snow-covered peaks standing stark against the gray winter sky. "Inspector, I've dedicated my life to chess because it represents something pure, the ultimate battle of minds, where truth always emerges through analysis and skill. If that purity has been corrupted for decades, then exposing the corruption is the only way to save what's left of the sport's integrity. There's something else you should know," Inspector Muller continued. "During our preliminary investigation, we discovered that this criminal network has been monitoring the communications and movements of several prominent chess players, including yourself. Your phone calls, emails, travel schedules, they've been tracking everything." Magnus felt a chill of realization. That explains how they always seem to be one step ahead of any criticism or investigation attempts. "Exactly. But it also means that your decision to confront them directly today was extremely dangerous. These people have demonstrated they're willing to use threats, violence, and intimidation to protect their operation." As Magnus left FIDE headquarters that evening, snow began falling heavily on the streets of Zurich. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from chess journalists around the world, all wanting comments on the dramatic arrests. Chess forums and social media platforms were exploding with speculation and disbelief. The arrest of FIDE's president and the revelation of systematic tournament fixing was sending shockwaves through the entire chess community. But Magnus ignored the media attention. His thoughts were focused on Dvorkovich's cryptic warnings about Ding Liren's cheating technology and the mysterious references to Garry Kasparov's historical matches. If this criminal network had indeed been operating for 30 years, it meant that some of the most celebrated games in chess history might have been compromised. Magnus made a decision that would define the next phase of his war against chess corruption. Tomorrow, he would begin his own investigation into Ding Liren's recent games, using every resource at his disposal to uncover the sophisticated cheating methods that had been developed. But more importantly, he would reach out to Garry Kasparov to understand what questions the former world champion had been asking and why those questions had made powerful people nervous. The war for chess's soul had only just begun, and Magnus Carlsen intended to fight it with the same precision and determination that had made him world champion. In hotel rooms across Asia and Europe, phones were ringing with urgent conversations. Computer files were being encrypted and hidden. Security protocols were being activated, and in a nondescript office building in Shanghai, emergency meetings were being called to discuss how to handle the Magnus Carlsen problem. The next morning's headlines would scream about the greatest corruption scandal in chess history, but the real story was just beginning to unfold. Magnus had won this battle, but the war would require him to challenge not just current corruption, but potentially decades of chess history that millions of fans believed represented the pure pursuit of intellectual excellence. As snow continued to fall on Zurich, Magnus Carlsen walked through the quiet streets. Knowing that his life had changed forever, he was no longer just the world's best chess player. He had become the sport's conscience, its defender against forces that threatened to destroy everything that made chess beautiful. The investigation into Ding Liren's cheating methods would begin immediately, but Magnus suspected that uncovering the full extent of this corruption network would take years and would challenge everything the chess world thought it knew about its own history.